Okay, hi, my name is Eric Nathan. I'm the composer in residence of the New England Philharmonic, and I'm here today with Gillian Perry, who is one of the finalists from the New England Philharmonic's Call for Scores. And we really enjoyed listening to Gillian's composition, I'm Sorry to My Body for Orchestra, which is one of the finalists' pieces. And today we're going to be talking about Gillian's music. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So you're currently the Vanguard composer in residence at the Chicago Opera Theater, and you have a wonderful new opera called The Weight of Light. And I wonder if you could tell us a little about what that experience has been like and how this work has come to be. And for our listeners, we're including a link to this opera beneath the video so that you can, in the future, take a listen to it.
Yeah, for sure. So I was the Vanguard composer in residence for the last 2 years. My residency ended a few months back in 2024. And as part of that residency, I got to write The Weight of Light, which is my very first opera. It's a chamber opera. Yeah, so as far as the residency went, it was very, oh gosh, how do it was so life-changing. But basically, the way the residency works is you get mentorship with industry professionals across the contemporary opera world. You get to, I got to meet with Jean Shear and Jake Heggie. They were both some of my mentors as I was working on this, which is insane because I've been such a big fan of both of them since I was a little baby freshman. So I got to work with a lot of different mentors to learn about opera. I studied a lot of operas through the leadership of Lydia Yankovskaya, who founded the Vanguard program. She's phenomenal, and I got to meet with her and do score study of a bunch of classic operas and then contemporary work as well. And then as I was learning about opera, I got to write my very own, and I got to pick my librettist. So I got to work with Marcus Amaker, who's a poet. I love, love, love his work, and we really just found a very deep connection with each other. Even from our first meeting, we met on Zoom, just like this. We met on Zoom and we just instantly connected. And I was like, this is who I need to work with. And so then, yeah, over a year, we developed the story and he did drafts of the libretto. We did a libretto reading. And then, yeah, I had a few months to do the piano vocal score and the first iteration of the piece. And I had a PV workshop, got some notes, audience feedback, and then I got to fully orchestrate and do my edits and everything. And the work had its concert premiere in April of this past year. Yeah.
That's exciting. Yeah, so this piece, I know in a number of your works you engage with topics of mental health, but also childhood. And this piece is about a mother and a daughter who have the ability to talk to objects. And I thought you could tell us a little bit more about the inspiration behind it.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, a lot of my work has to do with mental health and mental wellness. I have a mental illness, I have depression and anxiety, and those things have really um, impacted the way that I see the world. So as Marcus and I were planning this story out together, we both connected on this sort of sentiment of how do we be the best people that we can be, even as we navigate mental health challenges, and how do we still keep our wonder for the world when sometimes the world feels so dark and so scary. And Marcus, actually, when we first met, he had just recently had his first child. So he was kind of looking at life from the perspective of being a new parent. And when Marcus and I first had our first Zoom call, um, my dad had just been diagnosed. He was terminally ill. And so we were coming at life from these interesting perspectives of I was observing my relationship with a parent as a child, and he was observing his relationship as a new father. And so we were like, why don't we do a parent-child story and talk about the things we inherit from our parents, and how do we navigate when if you inherit something that feels heavy and difficult. So it was important to us that it didn't get too heavy. We wanted to use symbolism as a way to come at this inherited mental illness sort of perspective, but in a way that allowed for some levity, because things don't have to be so scary all the time. A lot of my work, I feel I like to use symbolism as a way to address some of this stuff because it's a little easier, I think, for people to understand if they have kind of a stand-in for some of these things. So yeah, we were like, well, what if I don't know, what if we have objects talking? The way that that happened, I had actually written a piece a few years back called Memory Holder that was about these cups that my grandmother had given me. They're like these little espresso cups. I wish I had them here, but I don't have them here with me. But I inherited these cups from her, and she had them longer than I was like even alive. And these cups, I started thinking about like, wow, like my grandmother had this cup in her house, and how many memories did this cup get to see? Like, I never met my grandfather on that side of the family because he died before I was born, and I was like, these cups knew my grandfather, and I don't.
Yeah.
So it got me thinking a lot about that of like what memories are held in an object, and if these cups could talk to me, they could tell me about my granddad. Like that would be amazing. And so I mentioned that to Marcus, and then he is brilliant, and he kind of ran with that and was like, "Oh my gosh, what if that's the opera? Like we have the objects can talk, and like there's this element of like the memories they hold from our ancestry, and like what can we learn from that, from what we've inherited, like via the little vehicle of objects talking." So Marcus and I, yeah, we just I don't know, we just kind of took it and ran with it, and it felt it made sense to us. I feel like when we first started pitching it, people were like, objects talking? And I'm like, yes, but just like, hear me out. And then, yeah, I'm really happy with how it turned out. But yeah, that's how that came about because we were thinking about memory and like how objects hold memory. Yeah.
That's so fascinating, really beautiful. I wonder your experience writing music to be sung in the from a and how you're engaging with the character as a human character versus an object character and what that experience is like.
I love that question because I thought about that a lot as I was starting in my beginning stages when I compose. I'm very visual, so I like to like draw these pictures of like how different characters feel and all this different stuff. Like I drew a picture for all of my main characters of like what their brain map probably looks like. I'm a horrible artist, so the pictures are awful and nobody needs to see them, but I needed them to organize my thoughts. And yeah, for each of my characters, I had an idea of how they would talk, but with the objects, I wanted them to feel really different because I was like, well, if an object is talking to me, I don't think it's going to sound exactly the way that it would like with how you and I are talking. Like, I don't think it would sound exactly how it feels to like talk to a human. So I decided to do just these interval jumps. So I have a lot of them where it's like a seventh in particular I do, where it's like a like I am the clock, like that, because I felt like it felt really different. And also, it's sort of a reference musically to, I don't know if you know the piece Lost Objects. It's like a David Lang piece.
Oh, no, I haven't heard it, but yeah.
Well, I love that piece, and he uses that sort of mechanism a lot too, of like these jumping sevenths. And so it's like sort of like my tribute to that because that's also a piece about objects. And also it was a way for me to like differentiate like how the objects sound versus how the people sound. Yeah. So that's how I kind of decided that. But then even within the humans, I had some ways that I wanted people to sound that was different. Like Dawn uses a lot of melismas, the mother character, because I wanted her to have this sort of spiritual guider sort of feeling. So there's lots of melismas. And Emily, the daughter, over the course of the opera, she's like a child and then she's a teenager and then she's grown. And the idea with her vocal lines was like by the time she's grown, she started to imitate some of that melisma writing. But when she's a kid, she tries to do it, but she can't quite do it. So the idea being she's, we grow into our parents in a lot of ways. So it's her vocal writing got more and more like Dawn's towards the end of the opera. Yeah. So
Well, it's such, I think, a fertile ground for creativity in opera where you're like a playwright or a film director or a novelist or an actor, you're coming up with these worlds of characters, but then how that inspires the music that you write, because it might, as you say, seeing hear you, it's led you maybe to different intervals or harmonic material that you might have otherwise written to evoke this feeling or this character.
yeah,
Um,
for sure. And I grew up in the theater, so I was like on stage and stuff since I was a little kid. So I feel like I don't know, I'm always imagining myself like as I'm like, if I were a clock right now, like what? How would I talk, you know? So I'm grateful for that too, of like being like on the stage. I think it helped me inform kind of how I was thinking about some of the characters. But
Yes, it's right near home for us. My wife was in a improv comedy troupe called Objectified, where they played inanimate objects, and the audience would suggest an object, and then they would create a whole scene from the perspective of that object. So I've seen lots of theatrical work from that perspective, and I think it just yields such interesting and creative results.
oh,
So
I love that. Yeah, it's interesting once, I started talking about this sort of stuff more with people. I found, yeah, it's a very like people we're out here thinking about that of like what is this table? What does this table have to say? Like what does this piano have to say? Like, yeah, I'm certainly not the only person to have considered that. And I think it's really interesting that we're all just walking around being like, hmm. Also, this is a little bit tangential, but here we are. When I was a little kid, I used to like when I would like talk to my sock drawer. Like all of my different socks, I felt like they all had different personalities. So when I would get new ones, I'd like put them in and I'd be like, okay, like don't be mean because like, this is a new person, like don't be a bully. And so I'd like kind of like, so I just feel like ever since I was a kid, I think Toy Story really did it for all of us, like we're all thinking about like what goes on with the objects in our lives when we're not in the room. But yeah.
oh,
So
that's wonderful. I love it. So set the stage for this aria that we were going to share a link to with Dawn's aria, which in listening to it, I found you have such a great talent for just letting the text and the meaning have its kind of platform to come through. There's moments where the music accompaniment dies down, and we just can really hear so clearly the feeling of the character, but also the text, and then the music when it does come in, it really helps guide the drama forward. So I wonder if you set the stage a little bit for this, and maybe if you could share some musical thoughts you had while writing it.
thank you. Thanks for your kind words on that. That means a lot. This aria is very like dear to my heart, so it means a lot that this was a standout for you. Um, yeah, so let me set the stage. I feel that this aria is one, it's like the heart of the opera to me because it's Dawn talking about how like her concerns of whether she's like kind of ruined Emily's life, her daughter, So um to me, that's the whole driving conflict between the two is it's really that the premise for the opera, Dawn doesn't want Emily to tell people that they can talk to objects. And Emily's like, I think it would be better if we were able to talk to other people and we didn't keep this a secret. So, but really Dawn's biggest driving force is that she is scared that she has like ruined Emily's life by like passing on these abilities and these things that she views as like undesirable to her child. And she tries her best to paint it in a positive light for Emily. She's trying to be like a strong mother, but like really she has this deep, deep fear and shame around it. So that's setting the stage for the aria. That's this moment where she finally reveals that to the audience. She doesn't really say it to Emily, which she should have, but we often say the things that we should say to one person, we often say to someone else in life. And so it was important to me that she didn't really clearly express it to Emily, but rather it was something that she shares with the audience. Um, but yeah, musically, there's a couple themes I'm playing with. So there's this one theme that comes back over and over in the opera, which is the shadow theme. So this idea of like whenever Dawn is thinking about like, oh, have I like passed on this horrible thing to my child? Have I ruined her life? If there's this little melody, let me see if I can. That's the shadow theme. So throughout the opera, I have that coming and going, but it's only in this aria that it clearly gets associated with Dawn and with the shadow, because she uses that melody as she's saying, "Did I give Emily my shadow?" So it was important to me that the orchestration really dies away there, so you really focus on that. So the idea being like retroactively, we can trace, oh, anytime that we were hearing that theme, it's Dawn considering like, oh, have I given Emily my shadow. And I have the object characters function as like a chorus. So they're singing behind her and they're highlighting keywords that
Mm.
she's ruminating over. Because with the objects, I have them be this whimsical, like, I'm the clock, can you hear me? And they like give advice and they're these cute characters, but they also represent this inner dialogue that goes on for Dawn where she ruminates and she obsesses over like, is this some sort of horrible thing that I've passed on to my child? Am I handling it well? So in the aria, that's the first time too that I really start to highlight that of they start emphasizing very specific words that Dawn is saying to build kind of these alternative sentences in the background beyond what she is saying. Yeah, so then by the end of the aria, that's what's happening is you just get the chorus singing underneath her as she goes and the instruments die out completely to highlight that.
Yeah. I think Zoom filtered out your piano.
Oh no.
Try
Oh, that's okay.
showing us or vocalizing, because I think your voice comes through of what the contour of the melody is.
Yeah, so it goes, did I give Emily my shadow?
Oh yeah.
Ba-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-da-dum. That's the main theme. It says, yeah, da-da-da-da-dum. And this is a fun fact that I've actually never shared with anyone. So here we go. That melody I wrote for an orchestra piece that I did in graduate school. And that piece was about my dad, very specifically. So for me, it was like something I had baked into the character of Dawn of like, it was like a paying tribute to my father with that melody. So yeah, so that's a fun fact. Yeah.
Well, we have the composers can ascribe meaning to these motives that could be um, idée fixes that can follow you in your life as
Yeah.
well. And with that moment, the shadow, we were before the interview began. I was asking you. I was trying to remember the word it happened on, but that motive I felt was one of the most evocative parts of this movement because the music at that point is in the text setting is getting very more spare, but then the soprano adds in this little gesture that lightly runs up, and it's like signaling another world or something that's not in the current emotional state at that moment. So yes, I hope our audiences really enjoy listening to this beautiful aria. And just as we close, I wonder if you could share with us what are you working on now? What's coming up next? If there's things for us to keep an eye on.
Yeah, so actually related to The Weight of Light real quick, there's another performance of it coming up in Nashville on May 10th. So like if you're in Nashville and you want to like actually come hear it in person, that'll be happening. It's May 10th at 6 p.m. Intersection is doing an intersection in Nashville. So yeah, if you want to hear the piece live, there's that. But alternatively, I've been working on a lot of things. I just finished a poetry book actually that's on my website that has poems, and then there's like an album that goes along with it. You get like a secret code to the playlist, like if you buy the book, and so then you can like each track has like a poem that goes with it. So I just finished that. And then I have like a million things I'm writing right now. But as far as like things tangibly that you can like go see, you can go see The Weight of Light in May. You can look at my poetry book. I also just released a song. I do songwriter stuff. So I released a song in February called Cold Air. That's about the winter. So as we're getting into springtime, you can go listen to that. Yeah, so those are some of the things I've been up to lately.
Great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us about your work, and please tune in and follow Gillian's music.